Calico Joe Chapter 15. Chapter 15 of Calico Joe takes place in the present tense. And as a reminder, Paul has traveled to Florida to talk to his dad, Warren. After his first 2 or 3 wives, Warren began marrying for money instead of looks and lust. One of his later ones, Florence, died from heat stroke and left him with a nice home and some cash in the bank. He isn't rich, but comfortable enough to avoid work and spend his days at the club playing gin rummy and golf and drinking. When he was about 55, roughly 10 years ago, his then-wife Karen, I believe, convinced him to sober up and stop smoking. To his credit, he did, though the damage to his body had been done. Poor Karen. She soon realized he was far more agreeable on the sauce than off. They divorced, and never solo for long, he took up with Agnes, the current wife. They live in one of those typical Florida gated communities with rows of low-slung modern houses tucked along fairways and ponds and around putting greens. Everyone is over 60 and drives a golf cart. On the subject of golf, as soon as his baseball career ended, Warren plunged headlong into what he hoped would be a new career on the tour. He hooked up with a pro somewhere near Sarasota and played and practiced for hours every day. He was 35 and the odds were against him, but he felt as though he had nothing to lose. He qualified for the Citrus Circuit, a low-budget South Florida tour, sort of like a Class B minor league baseball. He won his second tournament and got his name in the fine print of the Miami Herald. Someone saw it. That someone told others, and a rough plan came together. At the next tournament, just as Warren was about to hit his first tee shot, a pack of Cubs diehards began jeering and cursing him. He stepped away, exchanged words, and waited for an official to intervene. Such tournaments, though, are not heavily secured or supervised, and the hooligans refused to go away. When his first tee shot landed in a small lake, the Cubs fans cheered and howled. They followed him from hole to hole on the front 9, and he fell to pieces. So after Warren leaves baseball, he's like, okay, I'm going to give it, golfing a shot. Maybe I can make a living at that. But after he wins a tournament, his name gets in the paper, and Cubs fans find out, and they start to ruin things for him and show up, and they're loud, and they're distracting, and so he ends up doing terribly at golf. But you can't really blame them, right, because of what he did to Joe. The concentration of a golfer is fragile. Witness the strict rules regarding fan behavior at a PGA event. Warren, though, was far from the PGA, and the Citrus Circuit could do little to control what few fans showed up. They stalked Warren Tracy, and wherever he played, they waited in ambush. In one tournament, he birdied the first 3 holes in silence, then was verbally assaulted by several large, belligerent young men as he approached the tee box on number 4. His scores continued to rise, along with his blood pressure, and when he shot an 88 in the second round of his 5th tournament, he quit. Evidently, there are a lot of Cubs fans in Florida, and over the years, Warren has had a number of run-ins with them on golf courses. He also had fights in bars, stores, and airports, and for a long time he traded in cash and avoided credit cards. He once got screwed out of $40,000 in a condo deal by 2 men who were Cubs fans and deliberately suckered him into the transaction. The surname Tracy is not that common, and for years after the beating, it meant trouble for Warren. So again, one decision in his life changes the trajectory and the rest of his life to where he is a hated man across America. The ancient security guard clears me through the gate. It is early evening, and couples are biking and walking for exercise along the footpaths next to the winding street. The golf course is deserted. Everything is green and well-groomed. According to my research, the home was appraised at $650,000 and had been purchased by Warren and Agnes 5 years earlier. I didn't keep records, but it must be the 15th place he has lived in Florida in the past 30 years. I suppose Warren is the restless type. He tires quickly of wives and homes. I have not seen him in 4 years. Sarah and I did the obligatory Disney World trip with the girls, and for some reason I thought it was important for the kids to at least meet their paternal grandfather. What a disaster. He did not want us in his home, nor did he want us to meet Agnes. So we met for lunch at a chain restaurant, Wink's Waffles, not far from his gated community, and he struggled to be civil. He had not met my children before, and Warren in the role of grandfather was a pathetic sight. He was a stranger to the girls, to Sarah, and to me as well, and he could not have been more uncomfortable. So this is sad. I mean, we knew that Paul and his dad had a strained relationship, but we learned that he hadn't seen him in 4 years. He takes his daughters to Disney World in Florida, and it's like, okay, I feel like they need to meet their grandfather. They meet up at a waffle place, Wink's Waffles, and Warren's awkward, and it goes horribly wrong. So he is not close to Paul, nor is he close to his grandkids at all. Sarah's parents live in Pueblo, Colorado, and we see them several times a year. They adore their granddaughters and are as involved in their lives as possible. So the girls had a clear idea of what grandfather should be. Warren, though, completely baffled them. He was unsure of their names, thoroughly uninterested in small talk, and showed no warmth whatsoever because he had neither the desire nor the ability. And when he glanced at his watch 30 minutes into the little family reunion, it was noticed by all of us. Afterward, I promised Sarah and the girls that they would never again be subjected to my father. I knew they approved of this decision. Later, once we were home, the girls told their mother that they felt sorry for me. They could not comprehend how a nice guy like their dad could have such a lousy father. Parked on the cobblestone driveway is a Mercedes that is at least 15 years old. I ring the doorbell and Agnes eventually answers. This is our first face-to-face meeting. It will be brief. Neither she nor I want to spend 10 seconds together. She is the latest victim in a long, sad list of vulnerable and desperate women who, out of loneliness or some other unfathomable reason, agreed to marry Warren Tracy. As I follow her through the foyer, I wonder how many husbands she has been through, but I really don't care. Warren is in the den watching television, some breed of a delicate little lapdog on the sofa next to him. He rises quickly, manages a smile, and offers a hand. As I shake it, I am impressed by his appearance. His skin is pale, his movements slow, but for a dying man, he looks remarkably healthy. He mutes the television but does not turn it off. Nothing he does, regardless of how rude, surprises me. I back into a chair while Agnes sits on the sofa next to the dog. I'll get rid of her in a minute. We kill some time talking about his surgery, and I feign interest. Next is the chemotherapy, which will start in a week. I'm going to beat this thing, Paul, he says, a well-rehearsed line delivered with no conviction. He seems to think I care. He seems to believe I have traveled from New Mexico to Florida because I'm concerned about him. There is no doubt in my mind that if I were hospitalized and on my deathbed, Warren Tracy would find an excuse not to show up. Why then does he think I'm interested in his chemotherapy? Why? Over the years, I've learned the answer. He's special. He played the game. Maybe he didn't put up Hall of Fame numbers, but he was still one of the elite who made it to the big stage. His entire life has been lived in his own little self-absorbed, narcissistic world where he's a cut above the rest. So yes, Paul is visiting his father here, but he's visiting him for one reason and one reason only, right? And that is because he wants his dad to talk to Joe Castle. It is not because he's concerned about his dad or his dad's health. I feed him quarters and keep him talking. How long will the chemotherapy last? What do the doctors really think? I know a guy whose uncle lived 15 years with pancreatic cancer. Is more surgery possible? He does not ask about my wife, my daughters, his daughter, or her children. As usual, it's all about Warren. Agnes, who's a little on the chunky side and easily as old as Warren, just sits there rubbing the dog and grinning goofily at Warren as if his narratives are witty and original. It doesn't take much to amuse Agnes, I decide after 10 minutes. I wonder if it has crossed her mind that in virtually all polite circles, she, as the hostess, is expected to offer me something to drink. I look at her and say, "Say, Agnes, I have a few things I need to discuss with Warren in private. You know, family stuff, rather personal. Could the two of us have a few minutes?" She does not like this at all, but Warren smiles and nods his head at the door. She huffs out of the den, closing the door behind her. I reach over, take the remote, turn off the television, sit back down and say, "Guess who I saw this morning, Warren?" "How should I know?" "Always a smart one, right?" "Always, yes." "Joe Castle, that's who. I was in Calico Rock yesterday afternoon and last night, and this morning I saw Joe." "I suppose you were just passing through." "No, not at all. I went there for the purpose of seeing him." His shoulders sag a little as the air gets heavier. I'm staring at him, but he has found something on the floor to hold his gaze. A minute passes, then another. He finally grunts and says, Something you want to say? I'd moved closer to him and sat on the edge of the coffee table. 2 feet away, I realized how little sympathy I have for this dying old man. There's far more anger than pity, but I promised myself I would not visit our past. I want you to go see Joe, Warren. Now, before it's too late. Before you pass away. Before he passes away. There will never be another time like now. Go, sit down with him, offer a hand, offer the truth, offer an apology, at least attempt to close this story. He frowns as if in severe pain. He looks at me as his mouth falls open, and for a while he cannot speak. I'm serious, Warren. You've lied for 30 years about what happened, but you and I both know the truth. For once in your miserable life, stand up and admit you're wrong. Apologize. You've never reached out to him. You would never face him. You would never face the truth, quite the opposite. You've lied and lied and lied until you probably believe your own lies. Stop the lying. Tell Joe the truth and tell him you're sorry. You got a lot of guts coming here with this stuff, he snarls. I have far more guts than you, old man. If you had a backbone, you would go see him. I'll go with you. We'll make the journey together. And when it's over, you'll feel a lot better about yourself. Aren't you the wise one? I am, on this matter anyway. His pale face has reddened with anger, but he holds his tongue. Another minute passes. What'd you say to him? He asks. Nothing. We didn't speak. I saw him from a distance. He walks with a bad limp and a cane, thanks to you. I did not intend to hit him. I raise both hands and laugh. Here we go again. The biggest lie in the history of organized baseball. And what's worse, everyone knows it's a lie, including both of us. Get out of my house. I will in a minute. Let's face the truth, Warren. You won't make it to Christmas. The odds are heavily against you. When you die, those who know you are not going to say things like, good old Warren, he loved his kids, or good old Warren, what a generous soul, or Warren truly loved his wives. Nothing like that, Warren, because it doesn't fit. The one thing that will be mentioned in your obituary, if you have one at all, is the fact that you threw the most famous beanball in the history of the game, and in doing so, you deliberately destroyed one of the most promising careers of all time. That's what they're going to say, Warren, and you can't do a thing about it. Please leave. I'll be happy to leave, Warren. Just let me finish. You can never undo the misery you created, the neglected kids, the tormented son, the abused wife, the alcoholism, the philandering, the long trail of debris you've left behind. Can't fix it, Warren, even if you are inclined to do so, which I'm sure you're not. But there is one person you can reach out to and perhaps make his life a little brighter. Do it, Warren. Do it for Joe. Do it for yourself. Do it for me. You've lost your mind. I reach into my jacket and remove some folded papers. I want you to read this, Warren. It's titled The Beaning of Joe Castle by Paul Tracy, son of Warren. I wrote it many years ago, and I've revised it 1,000 times. Every word is true. My plans are to get it published as soon as possible after your death. I'll start with Sports Illustrated, Baseball Monthly, the newspapers in Chicago. Not sure after that, but I'll bet somebody will want to print it. I don't want a dime. I want the truth to be known. I drop the papers onto his lap. The only way to prevent this from being published is to go with me to Calico Rock and see Joe. Blackmail? You got it, Warren. Old-fashioned blackmail, but for a good reason. I toss a business card on the sofa and say, I'm at the Best Western down the road. If you want to talk, I'll meet you at your favorite spot, Wink's Waffles, at 9 a.m. He was scratching his forehead when I left the room. I did not see Agnes on the way out. So this is a blackmail that Paul was referring to when he was talking to Clarence about, okay, I have blackmail that I can use against my dad to make him come to Calico Rock to see Joe. Apparently, Paul has written this expose article all about his dad and the truth about that day. And I think he'll probably go into personal details and talk about how his dad purposely hit Joe Castle and why he thinks his dad purposely hit Joe Castle. And Paul says, okay, this is my blackmail against you. If you don't come with me to Calico Rock to see Joe, I'm going to get this published somewhere. I check into the Best Western, call home and chat with Sarah, then head downstairs to find something to eat. The restaurant is empty and uninviting, but there are a few salesmen swapping stories over drinks in the lounge. I choose a table, order a sandwich and a glass of tea, and notice a television in the corner. The Cubs are playing, the Mets with the sound on mute. I stare at it. The first baseball game I've watched in 30 years. So in 30 years, not only did Paul give up the game of baseball and never play it again, but he also hasn't watched a game of baseball since that game when his dad purposely hit Joe Castle. And now here he is sitting there, and he looks up, and the Cubs are playing the Mets, and it's the first game he's seen in 30 years.